Hello and welcome to day 6 of the Adventures in Tarot Casting. Today I'm going to explore a spread in the Creative Divination Sessions casting book that I have, and I'm also going to be using the Out of Hand Tarot tiles. They will be launching with the Kickstarter campaign in 2 weeks from tomorrow. Yay! Okay, so I've got it bookmarked, but for this book, if you are just happening upon this video and you have no idea who I am and just found this one and have yet to see anything else, this is a book that I created that we print here in house that is a collection of all the casting boards that we make. I know the screen is sideways, but there's a reason for that. So as you can see, there's, they mimic the board. So this is the Grand Tableau, and I'm glad I stopped on this one because the board that I'm going to be using today is heavily influenced and inspired by the Lenormand Grand Tableau. If you are unfamiliar with Lenormand, give you a little tiny backstory. What it is it's a method, it's a card system. Here's my lino cut version. They're a little smaller than regular tarot because they're meant to be read all at once. So it's called a Grand Tableau, where you set out all 36 cards and it gives you a theme and you look for signifiers and you do all these things. But this isn't a tutorial on the Grand Tableau. It's just to give you a quick idea of where I got the idea for the board that I'm going to show you today. So let's just flip to it, shall we? All right. So this is the Major Arcana Tableau, and I do have an engraved version, but I'm not going to use that because with the lighting and everything, I want it to be a little bit more crisp, but I just wanted to show you that we do have a board. All right. So in this book, what it is I have the image that we use actually to engrave the boards with printed on the page. They're a little bit smaller. The tile placements are a tiny, tiny bit smaller than the actual tile. This is a Lenormand tile, but it's just one I keep off to the side. Here, I have a tarot one, so just to show you. So they're just a tiny bit smaller for the purpose of printing the book. Our casting boards are 11 and a half by 14 or something like that. Yeah, and the pages in this book are 11 by 14, so everything had to be shrunk down. The book itself comes with the opposite page gives you a little bit of why I did it and a little bit of how to use it. So let's just flip it and get started. So let me line this up so I can sit down in my chair. All right. So like I said, I created this board for it to be inspired by the Grand Tableau. And the idea is, this is the Major Arcana Tableau. So there is a space for 0 through 21. And, I wrote some keywords about my relationship with these cards. Like the Fool says naive, begin, curious, spontaneity, carefree, now/here, like nowhere, now, here. So each card has a little description of what the keywords for that Major Arcana. It's a good way to use as a cheat sheet if perhaps you're just learning tarot and you want something that's quickly accessible, that gives you, like, oh, I want to know what justice is, and it's law, decision, balance, truth, and deliberate. And what's cool about this book is I want you to write in it. So if you have keywords that are different than mine, then feel free to write them in it. And then what I did also in here to give some cornerstones, because, I love cornerstones. I love trying to cram as much stuff into a space as I can. It must be the Gemini mind. So over here in this circle, you can see the water. So we have cups and water, and then cups. This could be a nod to something that you need to know from that suit. So it's the emotional matters, psychic connections, relationships, imagination, and then water, all encompassing the feelings, love, and mood. And I also have which astrological correspondences are water. So we have Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. This board also has the book stacks from Pocket of Purist Tarot. And the background behind everything is the full scene from the Pocket Appears Tarot, because I drew this board around that time and that launch. So a lot of my branding around then had the books and the study. And, you know, to me, tarot is a continuous study. There's a lot of things that I say I'm not when it comes to tarot, like I'm not a professional reader, but yet I can do a reading. And I think it's because I feel that there's still so much more for me to personally learn, but that's just my own baggage or whatever. So up in this corner, we have water. So you can see this background, and if you were to feel like doing a color backdrop and you have this page, then, you know, color, that's how you would see water, fire, earth, and air. So let's get to it, right? Now that you've seen this board, let's show you how I might use it in action. So the idea then is to lay out cards. I mean, you could by all means just get the majors and do that, but I like to use the full deck because I feel like it gives us a little gives us guidance to what this is. So I'm just going to talk you through it because it's way easier to show you. This is how I shuffle tiles in my Moonlit Faye bag. All right. So Fool, what energy might we need to know about the Fool? And we have that Queen of Pentacles. So the Queen of Pentacles could be you, it could be your signifier, or it could be just somebody in your life that, you know, embodies that Queen of Pentacles energy. And so in this position of the Fool, perhaps if this is you, we'll just say that the Queen of Pentacles is you. You need to get back to a space of being curious and being spontaneous. Like I know with Queen of Pentacles, like Jenna obviously comes to mind because she is the Queen of Pentacles in Pocket Appears and in the tarot deck. And I know she works so much and she's such a good mother. And there's so much that she does to make sure that her home is a place of order and working space and all this stuff. But at what cost? So it's like getting back to the position of finding the need to be curious and be spontaneous and just being in this moment now. So, of course, when I start out with a court card on it, it's a little bit harder. But so we're just going to lay it out. And this could give you, like, say you're doing a full reading, right? And you could be the signifier. You could put yourself in a position of the Fool. And so we're going to just lay out the first row. So we've got the Nine of Wands. Show you that. The Seven of Cups. Let's take a handful. We've got the King of Pentacles. Four of Cups. And the Ten of Pentacles. And then two more. Got the Ten of Wands. And the Nine of Swords. All right. So just to show you how this plays in this. So you say, okay, the Nine of Wands is in the Magician, right? So with this energy of the Nine of Wands, you're going, okay, I look at this as all the things that we've been through. And we've been through all these things, which will teach us how to adapt. And, you know, the trials that we go through in our life help us to perform, help us to understand, you know. So with this board, whatever the card falls into that house is what it's called in Lenormand. It gives you like a 2-card reading. So it's almost like the Nine of Wands with the Magician. Or you can read this whole thing as a quick chain like you would do in Lenormand, and you say, okay, the Nine of Wands with the Seven of Cups. Maybe everything, the decisions that you're working on have been harder than you thought they would be, but it's still bringing in the money. The choices that you've been doing with this King of Pentacles, it's bringing in the dough, right? You're seeing results because you're doing that work and you're making yourself accessible to all the different choices. But you've reached this state of boredom, right? Because now we got this Four of Cups and you're going, okay, Four of Cups is, I'm bored with it. What's next? What can I do next? And then Ten of Pentacles shows up to say, well, since you are in this state of being, you know, out on top, why not play a little? Why not get together with your family and friends and just enjoy this legacy for a moment, you know? And then followed by the Ten of Wands, it's kind of saying, you know, there's always going to be those loads that we have to carry, and then there's always going to be the things that we have to worry about. So if there's like a card in here, as you're reading it in a long chain, I feel like this is a lot, and I get it. And this is, way to kick off a Monday, but it's just showing you a way that you can get playful with this board. So if you're going, oh man, the Nine of Swords, like how do we end that line on that note, all pertaining back to this person who needs to be here now, right? Well, the Nine of Swords is paired in that Chariot. So maybe you're doing too much. It's like, so all work and no play gives you this anxiety, right? The Ten of Wands in the Lovers, it's saying, well, the choices that you've made is why you might be feeling a little bit burnt out right now, right? Doing what you love doesn't always mean that everything is just paved, like the road is just going to be so smooth. Sometimes there's going to be burdens that we have to pick up, which make us re-examine some of the choices that we've done. And that Nine of Swords is going, oh, not again, and I feel like we have a stalker in the tarot casting adventures because Nine of Swords has come up quite a bit. But in that House of the Chariot, you can read that as it's like, okay, just keep going though, the progress, right? Ten of Pentacles is in the House of Hierophant. So we learn when we play together, when we are experiencing our legacies together, when we're showing what we've done and just kind of taking a step back and looking at everything that is at our hands, it teaches us. It's our traditions, right? Four of Cups is in the House of the Emperor. You're bored because, yeah, you might be stable, but like, I feel like emperors, there's my dog shaking. I feel like people in power sometimes get bored, which is why they do the things they do in order just to see what's going to play out. So you can kind of see how these start a conversation. It's obviously a really big spread, and it's not something that I would suggest to do for just a, on the fly as a quick reading, but it's something that you could leave set up and come back to it. But let's just keep unfolding with the story, So that's how I want to show you that each one of these, even though if you're having trouble with it, you could say, okay, you don't have to read each one as a 2-card spread, but if you want more clarity, you can. The Seven of Cups in the House of the High Priestess talks about, that Seven of Cups, they've got their tickets. They're trying to figure out which prize is going to be the best prize to get. Here, let's get in. There's quicker. Zoom in. But they're trying to figure out what's real and what's imagined. And in the House of High Priestess, it's saying trust your intuition when you're making your choices. So it can be just a quick little 2-card that helps this reading unfold. So let's do the second line, which is Strength through Temperance. And we've got Justice. I know you want to see them, so I'll do my best to come up into the thing. Six of Swords. The Star. The King of Swords. The Page of Swords. Little podcaster there. The Eight of Swords, lots of swords. So our second line seems to be full of things that we are thinking about and what we need to speak. The Four of Swords. And you see this bag, it is, they're shuffled, but this is what wants to come out. So when we get to the second line too, and if you are a student of tarot, you know that sometimes this layout is the Fool's Journey, and the first line is learning, it's who we encounter on the journey. And the second line, so it's kind of like, I'm gonna mess it up. It's almost like mind, body, and soul, right? So the first line is like body, like our physical limitations, finding out who we meet, learning the tools along the way. And then the second one is going into the mind, figuring out how to practically apply them. That's why it starts with strength and ends with temperance. So when we look at this second line, we have Justice with the Six of Swords, Star, King of Swords, Page of Swords, Eight of Swords, Four of Swords. It is mind, right? Holy mind. So reading it like we did before, we say, okay, now we're trying to find that balance, right? Justice is about finding balance and seeking the truth. And so in order to do that, we've got the Six of Swords, which is telling us that we need to move away from what we thought we knew. The Star is examining those wishes, the hopes and dreams that we have. And then the King of Swords is saying, well, if you walk in your integrity and you go about everything in your life from a truthful standpoint and just, because lies always have a way of finding themselves out. When we stand in our integrity, we are able to share the message, the Page of Swords, with the world, like share what we have observed. That's why I made this into a podcaster. It's kind of there talking out to the void in hopes that people will hear their message. The Eight of Swords reminds us that when we share from the space of truth and from, integrity, there's anxiety that comes around because there's not always going to be people who align with our viewpoints, right? So that's where this Eight of Swords is going, oh my gosh, how am I getting in my own way? They're trying to like rip open their journal, and not realizing like if they could just take a step back and see that the key is sitting over here, but the journal is locked, So it's that getting in our own way and kind of having to go back on ourselves, and maybe somebody called you out on something you said, all that. Which brings us to the Four of Swords, which is that reclaiming our space, getting back to a space of, all right, maybe that didn't work. Maybe I don't need to go all out at once. I need to take better steps. So meditating, going back into that sanctuary, words, what are words, right? And getting back to the self. So that aligns a lot with this particular line in the spread, right? So we could say, all right, if all of this is mental, there's so much about truth and communication in this line, but the star, why is the star here? The star is in the wheel. And you can see because our hopes and dreams are going to bring about the changes and the expansion. And this is what we feel we are destined to do, right? So that, it gives you that like little bit more clarity. Say you want the Page of Swords. Well, what is it that we're communicating out to the world? And it's in the house of the Hanged One. And it's showing an opposing viewpoint. It's seeing things from a different angle and being able to point them out. But sometimes when people are stuck in that different angle, they don't want to see that the other side, right? So you coming in and saying it like a precocious podcaster, maybe it's going to ruffle a few feathers. So then we get to the third line of this Major Arcana Tableau, and it is the soul level, right? So now we've experienced the physical world. We know the mental world of like, okay, so just because I'm excited about something doesn't mean everybody else is excited. Now I've regrouped, I've brought myself back. What is this going to do for our end of our journey, right? And we have the Knight of Wands, the Hierophant, the Empress, the Eight of Pentacles, the Tower. Ooh. The Eight of Cups. And one more. And we've got that Three of Pentacles. Let's flip it around. Okay. So in this, we have that final line that's talking about, okay, we've regrouped, we're back to our thoughts, we're maybe reevaluating how it is we're trying to share this message. And that Knight of Wands is kind of like, but it's who I am. It's who I need to be. I need to go for it. I want to help everybody. I want to save the world, right? That's why I chose the firefighter, because I feel like they're the ones running towards the danger when everybody else is running to safety, right? So just because that's who you are, you need to look at the next steps, right? So we have the Hierophant coming in and saying, okay, well, question your own beliefs, question your value systems. Maybe your upbringing was different than everybody else's, and maybe people don't see it in that way. So you need to figure out how to communicate and how to do the action in order to see that this is worth creating, right? So we have that Empress, and it's worth bringing about perhaps this new change where you have to kind of work at it. With the Eight of Pentacles brings that in. It's like it's going to be a constant process, right? The Tower's showing up right after it, saying it's going to really shatter some worlds, like it might even rebuild everything that you thought you knew. Doing this work is not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it, right? And the Eight of Cups coming after the Tower is, I love it. I love that so much. Like the Tower could be the party that got out of hand, and the Eight of Cups is cleaning up and just getting ready to walk away from all of it afterwards. Maybe you got to go back to the drawing board, which is that Three of Pentacles, saying, okay, it was a lot. You had a lot of great ideas. Implementing them didn't really happen how you thought it would. We have to go back to the drawing board because things got shook up a little bit. So again, with this row, if we want to say, okay, well, the Tower, what is the Tower in? The Tower is in the Sun. So it's redefining the things that make us happy, right? It's dismantling what we thought was, maybe that optimism was just too much for some. Like that's kind of like, so you see it in that 2-card spread. The Knight of Wands is in the Devil. So your marching orders might be something that is actually like the things that you're going after, some people might think are kind of like dangerous or, from a space of like self-serving, right? So that's when you have to reevaluate it. And we got the Empress in the House of the Star, and it's saying, okay, it's not that it's a bad idea, but it needs to be approached in a more gentler manner. Like that which is destined to be created will, and it'll be healing. And so this just kind of shows you how you can get like these layered readings. You could do it for the month. You could do it for yourself if you want. You could, if you're feeling saucy and you want to give a reading to a friend or family, then just try it out. The other spaces on here, like I said, if you want to play more and you want to put more things in, you could grab another tile and say, okay, well, what do I need to know about the water realm? What do I need to know about emotional matters and feelings? And you could do 2 cards here, and we've got the Moon, and the Knight of Cups, both watery cards actually. So you can kind of put these here in these spaces and say, all right, well, the Moon says I have to look deeper at what it is that I'm being emotional about, looking at the connections in my relationship, look a little deeper at what I'm reflecting and what is reflecting back to me. The Knight of Cups is talking about, when I see that, it's the person, I always think of somebody in animal rescue with that card, because they're the person who just loves too much, almost to a fault, right? So look deeper at your emotions and why it is that you are constantly trying to rescue people, right? Is it you that needs to be rescued? So that's like a guidepost in your water. When we go into fire, we have the High Priestess, and the Knight of Swords. So with that fire, we say, okay, well, intuitively feel this is our calling, right? So intuitively, with the High Priestess in that fiery energy, it's like when you feel that fire to connect, that you are inspired by something that you feel is bigger than yourself, you feel like you need to act, you need to get that message out there, but how can you do it in a way that's going to inspire others? When we get to Pentacles, we have the Ten of Swords. I'm going to put that here. And then the Hermit. So Pentacles is talking about the material realm, our bodies, career, traditions, and Earth is grounding in home and family. So when we see these together, we think about the Ten of Swords. Well, how is that grounding? Sometimes you have to reach bottom. Sometimes you have to really put yourself. I did the Ten of Swords as a tattoo artist because I find that people, when they've reached a milestone, whether it's a proverbial bottom or it's something that is something worth marking, right? Like ending a chapter, I'm getting this tattoo because it's a reminder that I'm never going back to that again. So that's like the 10 of Swords, plus it's, you know, a lot of needles. But so grounding is kind of saying, okay, what have you closed the chapters on then? Are you staying grounded to your truth of that, of being done with that part of your life, in order to really, like with the Hermit here, it's stay in touch with what it is, that space of yourself that you're holding sacred, right? And then with Air, Swords, I always seem to throw them on the floor. Shuffling gets out of hand. All the puns. 5 of Swords, so we've got that here. And the 4 of Pentacles. So with that, with the mental pursuits and the reason and conflict and strategy, air, thoughts, ideas, and logic, we have 4 of Pentacles talking about conserving your resources. Conserve your thoughts. You know, not everything that goes through your head needs to be shared or said, you know, because sometimes when you do that, with the 5 of Swords here, it's saying you could be cheating yourself, and it's not necessarily true to everybody who's going to hear it. So question your thoughts about if it needs to be shared, or question your resources. Where did it come from, you know? So that's just a show and tell on this board. Like I said, it is pretty big. It is heavily, heavily influenced by the Lenormand Grand Tableau. I know that my friend Thomas of Hermit's Mirror has a tableau that he's done with, I believe he just uses the majors. I will link him in the show notes if you want to check out his course material. It's brilliant. Thomas has a brilliant mind. And I think that when we get like really deep with the tarot, because this might be a lot all at once, when we get really deep with it, it's a way of just getting a little bit more playful and exploring the cards in a casual sort of manner, almost like studying, right? So to me, this is like a board of study. It helps you learn a little bit more about the cards that you put in the tableau and then the influences behind it, right? If you wanted to see all the different ways that you could do readings with it, you could choose diagonal lines, you could choose vertical lines, because we did the horizontals. And if you're like, well, I want to know more about the star, and so we already know about this, you could say, okay, well, the King of Pentacles and the Empress flank it, right? So we have those 3 as a line this way, and you could say, whatever it is that you dream of, it's definitely that King Midas touch. It's whatever it is that you dream of and can turn to gold, but you just have to figure out how to bring it into this world, you know? So that shows you how you can read it in a vertical line as well. There's many ways to play with it. I just wanted to share it with you, and I hope you enjoy this board. It's a bit much for a Monday, but I tend to be a bit much. So let me know in the comments what you think. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them down. I will do my best to respond either in another video or in the comments to help bring some clarity, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.